Hello, everyone. Raymond Mhor, Kilted Prepper. How's everybody doing today? I thought I would come in here and actually talk to you about knowledge. It is one of the best preps, basically, that you can do. And I don't know about you guys, but I have a huge, well, not a huge library, but a pretty decent sized library of all kinds of books. And in fact, I'm a really big fan of old books. And I like books prior to World War II. Because there's a lot of patriotism that our nation still had at that time. There was a lot of somewhat frugalness that our nation had at that time. And then a lot of people, during those days were preppers. I mean, think about it. People would can and people would do all kinds of things. But these are the things that became every day and it was the norm thing to do. And everything was before the big box stores and so forth and so on. And so I really like a lot of these old books from pre-World War II. And then also another reason is because we had World War One, the Great Depression, and then World War II. And so there was a lot of frugalness and uh, kind of homesteading, prepping, and really making do with what you had and everything. And so a lot of these books include those sort of things. So what I wanted to do is just share a little bit of some of the books that I've got and why I've got them, why I like them. And starting out here, this is from a friend of mine, and you guys know him as Doc Bones, Nurse Amy. And this is their first survival handbook, survival medicine handbook. And this was the first one. They now have several versions of this and everything, but I still have their first one. And I love this book. It was what was introducing me to Doc Bones, Nurse Amy. And in fact, it was kind of funny. I was on their show a long time ago when they first brought this book out. And we were kind of doing shows with each other. And they were introducing a book that I wrote a while back. And I was introducing the book that they wrote. And so this is a great book. It's still pertinent to today, but it's medical books. I'm a big fan of having medical books. I really try to treat at home as much as possible. And then I just enjoy studying medical books and studying what we need to do. Hey, Grinch, how you doing, bud? But medical books are a good thing to have on hand. You can get them again at used bookstores and stuff. Another favorite of mine is the SAS Survival Handbook. This is one of the Bibles out there if you're a preparedness person, bushcraft, and everything. But this is it. This is the book, and this book I have in my bathroom library, and I'm always reading it and always looking things up and everything. Hey, Michael, how you doing? And so this is a great book that I think everybody needs to have on their shelf. Um, and again, I bought this one new because this is their third edition. Yeah, their third edition. And again, this is a great book and one that I think everybody needs to have in their library. Um, let's see what else here. A while back on one of my live shows, I talked about this book, and I love this. Is probably one of my most favorite cookbooks, and this is called the Victory. What is it? The Victory Cookbook, and this is the wartime edition. And what was really cool about this book is it had a lot of the normal recipes in it, but it had a book within a book, and in the back here, you had basically how to feed a family on a week's worth of rations or for $15 a week. And so they put a book within a book, and it was really, how to be frugal with your food. You can still find this. If you find it on Amazon used and everything, it's going to probably be about $100. But this is an incredible book. I love it. I turn to it all the time. I'm always looking up at recipes and things, but it is the Victory Cookbook, the wartime edition. So great book. And again, for those of you just tuning in, I'm just sharing some of the books that I have in my library that I just love. And here's one that is somewhat new. It's becoming a go-to, and this is by Stephanie Peterson, and this is called Meals in a Jar. And for those of you who are really into dehydrating, maybe freeze drying and so forth like that, this is a great book. You can still find it on Amazon today. I don't know how much it is. I want to say maybe it's $35. If I can find all these books, what I'll do is I'll put links to them. I'll do some digging and everything, and I'll put a list of links so that you guys can find these books. But this is a great one. I'm a big firm believer of meals in a jar, and some of the things that I do with my dehydrator is I actually have a jar, a mason jar by our dehydrator. And anytime we have any leftovers whatsoever, if we are not going to eat them the next day, I always ask my family, are we going to eat this tomorrow? And if we're not, then I throw it in the dehydrator and I add it to our mason jar, which is basically what I'm creating is a meal in the jar. And so any meats or anything that I have, I'll trim off all the fat and everything. I'll get all the oils off of it and everything. Any veggies or anything that doesn't have any oils or anything on it, because we steam a lot of our veggies and so forth. So, but I throw it on in the dehydrator and turn it on, let it go for overnight. And the next day, I just pour it into my mason jar, and I just keep adding to that mason jar until I get basically a full jar of or meal in a jar. But then I'll throw a couple bouillon cubes in there to give it some spice and everything. And the thing is with these meals in a jar, you basically pour it in the pot, pour a jar or two of liquid into it, and boom, you've got whatever the meal it is. But Stephanie Peterson is like the person to go to. And hey, Cheryl, how you doing? But she's the one for meals in a jar. And so this is a great book. It's a rather new book. I mean, it's been out for several years and everything like that, but it's kind of like the Bible. I also love it is because it is spiral bind, and so it'll lay flat. And so I love books that lay flat and things. So this is a go-to, especially if you have a dehydrator. You really want to learn how to, really take care of those leftovers and everything. This one is a biggie. Um, and then another one, and I shared this also on the lives, one of my lives, and this is Marlene's Magic with Food Storage, and she's done a great job. I think this is written in 1976. Let's see, 1976 or 79, I forget, but it's up there. It's kind of hard to find. You can find it on Amazon used, and you're going to pay probably about $35 to $50 for it or somewhere last time I checked. And but this is great. What she's done is she's actually giving you steps of what to do and how to do it. And step one, step two, for example, here's step three and step four. And she talks about what you need to buy at this step. So instead of working with weeks, which is what I've done in the past, is like week one, you want to buy this, week two, you want to buy this. Marlene does it with steps. And so step one, and then she uses everything in her steps in these books. And so if you want to learn how to cook with barley or cook with wheat or cook with rice or cook with some of these preps that you're going to have in your pantry, a lot of these dry goods and everything, spam, she has some great recipes for spam and canned tuna and canned salmon and everything like that. Her suggestions have influenced our pantry. And so yeah, we've been stocking up more on tuna and salmon and spam. I love spam. My wife doesn't care too much for it, but as well, what happens if it's a SHTF situation? She's, well, I'll eat it. We're big fans of Naked and Afraid, and I say, well, think if we're on Naked and Afraid, would you eat it then? She's, oh yeah, I'd eat it then, but she doesn't like spam unless she has to. But this is a great book, somewhat hard to find, but if you can find it, get it. It is an outstanding book on how to prepare or use your preps in your pantry. Because some people, well, I went out and bought all the beans and lentils and all this other stuff, but now how do I cook it? This book right here tells you how. So really, really good one. Marlene's Magic with Food Preps. Let's see here. What else do I got? This was a really interesting book. Again, used book. And this is from, let's see here, 19. Oh gosh. It is from gosh. They have it in Roman numerals. 19 1934, 1935. So, this book's from 1935, and this is an encyclopedia of fun. And in it, this was before the days of internet and all that and games and they actually adults during those times used to play games, used to have parties and would, have game times and everything. So not only are there games in here for kids and such, but fun with parties, um, fun with music, fun with sports. But they actually have adult parties that you can do. Fun with seasonal parties and everything. But this is an encyclopedia of fun and games. And a lot of the games, there's some board games in there. They give you instructions how to make your own board games, some of the layouts and everything. But this was an incredible find. Like here's some instructions or how to make some of these, board games and so forth. But I found this book at a used bookstore and I was like, wow, what a great book. And, it's got a lot of illustrations and so forth. But what a great book, fun with banquets. That's it. Here's one, fun with banquets. And this is for an adult banquet, not a children's banquet. There's a lot of stuff in here for adults. And again, that was back in the day when people used to uh, you know, have fun and do things at parties and so forth and so forth. But this is a great book. And again, when you go to these used bookstores, really pour over them and you'll find a lot of things. And I thought this was a great book just because kids and other things, if there's ever a grid down situation or anything, how do you entertain yourself? Well, I've got the fun encyclopedia here. So this was a cool find. Another one by Doc Bones Nurse Amy. And this is something I reference a lot. And the reason I'm showing you this is because in June, the laws are going to change, and you're not going to be able to get certain medicines over the counter anymore for your fish or your cattle or your pets or anything. But Doc Bones goes into great detail in how to use those meds and everything. But again, the laws are changing. So if you don't have meds that this book may talk about, I'm talking in code right now, but if you don't have meds that this book talks about, then you need to hurry up and get them before June, because June, everything's going to get locked down. And so you're not going to get your dogs or cats any antibiotics or anything. Or if your fish have problems, you're not going to be able to get any fish antibiotics for your fish or anything like that. But get this book. I actually turn to it quite often and have used it quite often. But Joe Alton does a great job. He's a friend of mine, and I've known Joe and Amy for a bazillion years. But really good book. I highly, highly recommend it. Again, knowledge is power. And then here's another one. And I really like this one. This is a older book, but what is it? Darcian. Amy Darcian, I think, is how you say her name. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong, but this is the Taiwan Gazette. And she put out a whole bunch of articles and everything and put out a number of books. But what this is compilation of all her books put together in one book. You can see how thick it is. But this is an incredible book. And if you're looking at saving money or getting, more frugal or anything, this book has a whole ton of tips, tricks, and whatnot. And again, I highly, highly recommend it. The Tightwad Gazette, and this is again the complete book. They have several books out there of hers that are just this book and that book together, or that book and this book together. This is all of them put together, and again, this is pretty thick. But I turn to this one a lot. This is another one that's inside my bathroom library. So I read often, to always looking for good tips and tricks and so forth. But really, really good. And you find this one at the used bookstore as well as where I picked mine up and things. So, oops, a little drink here. If you're watching here, yes, Grinch, thank you. Like, subscribe, and share, folks, if this is really helping you. This is the latest edition of the Nuclear War Survival Skills book, and this one is actually was done in late 2022, and they are actually the authors actually talking about what's taking place in Europe right now, and then speculated scenarios and so forth. But one of the things that he does in this book is challenges your thought of what we think of happening in nuclear war today. Everybody thinks is, oh, hey, drop the bomb on me, it's going to be non-survivable, it's going to be a nuclear winter and everybody's going to die. And he shows a lot of great information, a lot of facts, a lot of science behind it. And a lot of the information that we have today is from the movie The Day After, which was produced, I believe, in the 1970s, maybe early 80s, yeah, 1970s actually. But Jason Robart and some of the other actors. But basically, it's an anti-nuke movie, anti-nuke propaganda movie, and a lot of that information is still what's stuck cold today as what is now fact. And it isn't. And he uses Hiroshima and Nagasaki as a lot of case studies, and then also a lot of other things that he talks about, weather patterns and everything. And so this is an excellent book. I think it's about $24 on Amazon. I highly recommend getting it. It will really challenge your thoughts of what is survivable and how it is truly survivable. And I know it's changed a lot of my thinking in regards to, is nuclear holocaust survivable? And yes, it is. And he really does go into some great details. I highly recommend this book, big time. And then, speaking of books, this is a really good book by the guy named Raymond Mhor, and me. But this is a book that I wrote when I was living down in Central America. And in Central America, you are not allowed to have guns. And so, when living down there, I lived in Central America, Costa Rica, and Panama for a number of years. And because of that, I learned a lot of different weapons. I learned a lot of different home security strategies, and so I just started putting it down in a lot of the articles. And a lot of people say, "Hey, why don't you just write a book about this?" And so I did. But this is a book about when a gun is not the answer. And because there's a lot of people out there that may not want a gun or can't have a gun or don't own a gun and everything. What do you do for home protection? And so I go into great detail about what you can do for home protection. Weaponize. And then this is another book that I wrote here recently, and it's The Poor Man's Guide to Preserving Your Wealth. Now, not everybody has 401ks, not everyone have IRAs or anything like that. And so how does people, the common man, preserve their wealth? And so this is what I do. I talk quite a bit about that in here, and very good book, and encourage you to get that as well. Let's see, any other books that I've got around here? No. And the whole reason I did this is I want you guys to really, start thinking about what can you do? What kind of knowledge can you attain? Knowledge is your best prep. Knowledge is your best information going out there. I mean, you might have great food and all this other stuff, but if you don't have knowledge to back it up, then, you might be hurting. So it's a really good idea to go to a used bookstore and start getting a lot of these old books. And again, I like pre-World War II or World War II and prior books when I'm looking for books and everything like that, because our attitude was a lot better. We were more patriotic back then. We were more frugal back then. Where our character and everything was a lot better back then. And so I really like pre-World War II books or World War II back to maybe the 1901s or to World War One. But that's the era of books that I like to collect. And they have tons of information. Pick up some of these books where you got this new wife or this new bride. A lot of people didn't, what was the responsibilities of the homemaker. And a lot of these books came out for new brides, and it had a little bit of everything. It was recipes, first aid, housekeeping, all these other things. But it basically taught the woman on the prairie how to, care and be basically the homemaker. And some of those are some good books. I'm always looking for them. I haven't been able to find one yet, but I'm always, those books really intrigue me. And so I've seen them at libraries, but I haven't been able to find them at used bookstores. So if anybody got a tip or something for one of the New Bride book, let me know. That's pre-World War II. I'll be glad to check it out and everything like that. So, but I wanted to come in here again, share what books I've got in my library, encourage you guys go out and get some of my books, and but knowledge is power, and grow your library. I'm always buying books. I'm always reading. I'm always researching, and so you know that's everything that I wanted to say. If you're new to this channel, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, and share. And if you're one of my more of my community, then I'm really appreciative of you coming back, watching, and everything. I see some names here that I recognize, so I'm really glad to see you guys. I appreciate it as well, especially tuning in at somewhere at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and but if there's anything that I can ever help with, or any questions you may have, or any topics that you may want me to cover or anything, please do me a favor, drop a comment below, or you can just email me at ray@raymondmhor.com, ray@raymondmhor.com. And so it's MHOR, or the Kilted Prepper. You can go to kiltedprepper.com as well. So we'll see you. I'm Raymond Mhor. Goodbye, God bless, and kilt on.